living in Virginia, you're in the fast lane on the information superhighway. We've invested $3 billion in Virginia's broadband network to give you one of the fastest internet connection speeds in the world, so you can build relationships, bring new business to our state, and meet the future of education. It's amazing what we can do together. Visit VCTA.com to learn how broadband connects the Commonwealth.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the VCTA Broadband Association and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. We're so pleased to have members from Virginia Beach. Jen Kiggans, good to see you,
good
new
to
senator.
See you. That's right, Woody. Yes, good to be here.
Delegate Glenn Davis, good to see you again.
Woody, good to see you. Thanks for having us back.
Great. We'll start with the freshmen. How are things going? I know you've been here since last Wednesday when you were sworn in.
That's
I'm
right.
sure there were some surprises.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the first about 10 days.
Well, gosh, I've been here about a week, and we're officially moved in, have some furniture and things on the wall in place, so that's good. The first few days were absolutely overwhelming. I think no one can describe kind of the experience of being in the General Assembly, but it's a great honor. I mean, I'm surprised by the bipartisanship there. It's a little the atmosphere is a little different than I expected. I really walked in very optimistic and positive, and I think we will be able to make friends and get some things done. But it's going to be a challenge this year. People have been very friendly though, and very, very helpful. I've been assigned to 3 committees, general laws and local government, general laws and technology, local government, and then rehab and social services. So those are going to be a learning experience as well, but I have some mentors that are helpful, and I'm just thrilled to death to be here and just honored to represent the constituents of the 7th District.
Well, I know you're continuing your public service because you have a background in the military. Talk to us about that. Right. I know you were a helicopter pilot.
That's right. I was in the Navy for 10 years of active duty, and I flew H-46s and H-3s out of Norfolk and HC-8, and then I did some search and rescue time at NAS Oceana flying. That's where I flew the H-3. So 10 of the best years of my life, deployed a couple times to the Persian Gulf. My husband's retired F-18 pilot. My son's at the Naval Academy. So big Navy family we have. So the military is always important to me. How can I advocate for our veterans, especially from my district? I'm the first female veteran elected to the General Assembly, so that's a great honor, and just happy to be there to represent women in the military as well.
And you have a background in healthcare as well.
I do. So I'm an adult geriatric nurse practitioner by certification, so I love working long-term care nursing facilities, rehab. People with dementias and cognitive impairment are my passion. That's really my area of expertise, so I'm excited to advocate for just the older adult population, especially with the aging of America that we were talking about earlier. There's such a need to advocate for that age group, so I'm happy to be here to not only help make healthcare more accessible and available and affordable, but just to advocate for my older adults.
Great. And Glenn, what's the mood in the House of Delegates with the changes that have occurred?
Well, it's definitely interesting. I mean, obviously this is a historic year. The first woman Speaker of the House, the first Speaker of Jewish faith. So we've had a lot of changes and broken through a lot of barriers, which is good. Obviously, with change comes challenges, and we've been experiencing a little bit of that. New leadership, new committee, subcommittee chairs, a lot of shakeup on some of the committees. So the start's been a little different than maybe in years past as people kind of get themselves, back up on their feet. But it's going well. We're starting to push things forward.
So talk to us about some of the legislation you are pursuing this session.
Sure. So there's a couple of bills, Woody, that I think are important to the Commonwealth, and a couple of them that I've kind of brought back. One of them is the Safe UT bill. That's a bill based on an application that is used in Utah, and it allows for anonymous texting or calling for students, teachers, or parents to report whether it's a school safety issue, a potential school tragedy that they've heard about, or if someone's just reaching out because they're considering self-harm. It's been a tremendous success in Utah. both not just preventing potential school tragedies, but also suicides. And so that app's coming back, and I think that's very important, especially considering the mental health challenges that our students are facing today in school.
I know there are a couple of others that you're pursuing as well. Talk to us about those.
So there are a couple of other ones. One that I think is important to the Commonwealth as a whole, specifically down in my neck of the woods in Hampton Roads, is redoing our film tax credit and our technology tax credit. We're very lucky in Hampton Roads. One of our, people that grew up there was Pharrell Williams, and Pharrell's made it big. He went to school not far from where I went, and he wants to bring the film industry to Hampton Roads and the rest of Virginia. You know, we have tremendous beauty, tremendous history. Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area, but we can't compete to get films, Woody, because the tax credits just are not competitive. So we had a plan put together last year, that's back this year, that would allow us to sidestep some of the abuses that states like Georgia and others have seen with their big tax credits, but allow us to be more competitive to get some of these huge film opportunities that we just can't get today. What do you know? You have Apple producing their own content now, Fox. The big thing is content production. We're seeing a resurgence in video and film and TV that we've never seen probably since the invention of the television. And we can capture that industry on the forefront if we can just get our policies right.
Good. We'll come back to some of the other things you're pursuing, but I want to talk to you a little bit about mental health. I know you have a passion around that issue.
Right. Right. It frustrates me that we have so much undiagnosed depression, anxiety, suicide. I think it's absolutely a contributing factor in the gun safety debate. So my area, again, of expertise is mental health. As a preventative primary care provider, we do a lot of screening and treating for mental health cases. So that's what I bring to the General Assembly. So the two bills that I proposed this session are how can we capture the general public for screening so that we can start treatment. People who don't always come to me in primary care and show up in crisis, where do they go? They're oftentimes in emergency rooms, urgent cares, public health, free clinics. So I'm working with some of the healthcare agencies out there to try to find where we can capture the public and do some simple depression screenings and hopefully start treatment so we can help and give them the resources they need to take care of their depression issues in the beginning so it doesn't escalate and turn into something worse. So that was one bill. Another one is continuum of care for mental health patients. I've heard from a lot of families at mental health roundtables just about this lack of continuum of care for patients that have inpatient psych stays. They are discharged and often just released on their own accord. Their families don't know how to deal. They're in the very beginning stages of recovery. So in geriatrics, we frequently use home health as just an avenue to send someone in the home to check on how are things going, check on medication management, are you taking your meds, do you have a follow-up care appointment? So doing that same thing with mental health and after inpatient psych stays. My bill proposes sending in home health. There's a lack of psychiatric specific home health care providers, which I would like to see changed, but in the meantime, there are many home health agencies, that nurses, social workers, different types of therapists that we can get in the home. I just want that set of eyes in the home to provide some support for the families and the patients. So that's my second bill. So really, what can I contribute to mental health? I'm excited about those two bills specifically.
So to what extent does this adversely affect the military, these mental health issues?
Gosh, so much. So working, the VA does a great job of their own kind of mental health facilities. And I know we're looking forward to getting an additional VA clinic in Virginia Beach. And we have some great resources for the military. I think the military actually does a better job of civilians. We've got the Up Center now in Virginia Beach. That's great for a walk-in clinic down in Kempsville area. So that's a great local resource. We just had its grand opening a few months ago. I think that we are doing a little better job in the military, and there's room for improvement more in the civilian sector. But veterans as well. It's a constant problem: depression, anxiety, suicide, PTSD. So what can we do to help that population as well?
Yeah, I imagine that transition to civilian life can be difficult for some veterans.
Yeah, absolutely. And the resources are out there. I think the problem exists in educating our veterans about what exactly is available to them. There's always something new that I'm learning about what's out there that I didn't know when I was active duty, and I didn't know when I even got out of the military. And they send you through a nice transition class, but how can we reach our veterans even later? when there's a lot of moving, there's even homelessness. How can we reach them? So that's going to be something absolutely to work on in the next few years.
Technology, cloud-based issues. I know you're involved in that issue.
Yes, sir. Woody, times have changed. There used to be a time back in the 80s, 90s where, you had servers in your offices. And you just prayed that the internet connections didn't go down to your office so you could, and your clients could access stuff from those servers. Times have changed. Cloud computing is something that every small business now uses, every large business uses. We have an issue in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It seems like we're always a little bit behind on technology. If you remember a couple of years ago, we had a hurricane coming through Hampton Roads, and the governor ordered a mandatory evacuation for an area. And everyone in Hampton Roads ran to their computers to go figure out what evacuation zone they were in, and it crashed the computers. And when that happened, Woody, I realized that Virginia hadn't quite caught up with the small business world and put their stuff online. So I reached out to the administration, got the PDFs that showed what evacuation zones were where based on the map. I uploaded onto my, we have a business Google Drive situation that we contract with Google for. I put them up there. I sent an email all around the Commonwealth saying if you need your evacuation zone, go to this link. It's hosted by my company, never crashed, because cloud computing is all dynamically allocated. So it doesn't matter how much demand there is for a site. It automatically adjusts to allow that demand access. And so last year I dropped a bill that said that any information that a citizen may need during a governor-declared state of emergency needs to be hosted in a cloud or hybrid environment. So we never have this happen again. It's sad that we are in the 2000s and you can basically have an emergency and people cannot get the information they need because we still think that we should operate on a premise-based system.
So where are these sites located, where all of these computers who house this information are?
So all around the world, Woody. So if you use, let's say, Google today, you're not on one server. So think of it as a, and for encryption purposes, that's great. So think of it as a mirror that you shatter into 1,000 pieces. And would you have an email, let's say, that saved on one of these servers or a document? You've got a little piece of that email that goes to this location, a little bit that goes to that location, a little bit that goes to this location. And unless you can have access to all these pieces and put them together, you don't know what that document looks like. You also had, mirrored services. So you could be on a server in one data center over here, but it's mirrored to a data center over in, let's say, Wisconsin. So God forbid a hurricane comes through Virginia and takes out a data center, or connectivity is diminished. You still have a redundant location someplace else.
Now, what about security? You talked about cybersecurity, but are we moving towards blockchain, for example?
We are. It's really funny. I dropped a blockchain bill last year, and around the General Assembly, people thought this is new technology and it's kind of scary. And MIT put out a report last year that 2020 is blockchain is so blasé and it's boring now because it's a 10-year-old technology. So it's kind of funny when MIT says it's boring and we still think it's scary because it's too new. Blockchain is immutable, meaning that you cannot fraud any system that is on a blockchain system. So think of it, Woody, if I had 1 million servers and I mirrored, you had an email, or let's say you had a list of all the car titles in Virginia, and it was on all 1,000 servers, and I wanted to go see who owned a certain car title. What comes as a result is whatever exists on 51% of the servers. And that's why it's so immutable, because you're not hacking into one computer to alter it or two computers to alter it. You've actually got to hack into 51% of all the systems that have that record on there to truly alter that record. That's why it's being trusted now in many places around the world. Estonia does their basically their government on blockchain. They're voting on blockchain. We should do healthcare on blockchain. It's Jen can talk, I'm sure, much better than I can on how long it takes for credentialing of a healthcare employee now. I think my sister-in-law, it took her 120 days because they go back and they want to check everything going back to your med school. Whereas if it was on blockchain and you knew it was trusted, you could immediately change states and immediately start work in that new system.
Great. Education, I know, is a passion of yours, and you've got some initiatives you're pursuing in that area as well.
Yeah, we can never do enough for our teachers and nurses are underappreciated and underpaid, in my opinion. So, and I just met with Norfolk Public Schools yesterday, But teacher pay, I think we're still not high enough in the food chain for teacher pay. What can we do to advocate for those guys? Mental health in the schools, I think that's a captive audience for us. So when we met with school board recently, we discussed those improvements. How can we get a person in place to be able to be accessible? Not a school counselor, not even a school nurse. Sometimes those relationships, especially with the school counselors, that kids are not. Those are the people that write their college letters of recommendation. They don't want to go to them for their mental health issues. So how can we get a person in place in schools, and maybe a public-private partnership where we bring some private care providers in, and there's a lot of, again, room for improvement there. Some of our facilities, just standing outside of many of our local schools during election day and looking at kind of the buildings are falling apart and the chipping paint, I think there's a lot of room for improvement with our facilities. So those are areas that I will absolutely be supporting and advocating for.
Small business creation
Yes.
and development.
Business is so important for Hampton Roads. I mean, especially this year, keeping Virginia a right-to-work state. There's a lot of push for increases in minimum wage. We need to be very careful with that. We have such a growing and thriving economy there with our tourism industry. So, and then all of the new businesses that are coming, some of the Amazon, the places we want to attract as well. We want them to think of Virginia as a friendly business environment, keeping the regulatory burden low for them. We've got some great places in my district with the port and the shipyard, a growing and thriving industry. So what can we do to keep them there? I want people, and small businesses as well. Small businesses are the backbone to our communities. So this is where our kids work. This is where, it takes a lot of small businesses to be successful to create just a large, thriving economy. So what can we do to invite small businesses and just keep them in Virginia Beach?
And of course, I know there was, I assume there still is, the Business Development Caucus in the House of Delegates. I assume it's still active, and you will be pursuing those kinds of initiatives as well.
Definitely, Woody. We got to make sure our economy continues to thrive. And it comes in a little bit of playing offense and a little bit of playing defense. We need to make sure that we can compete against, the other places that have really taken off. Austin, Texas, is known as that second Silicon Valley. There's no reason why we can't have small places throughout Virginia that have that same opportunity. We just need to make sure that we have the right procedures and laws in place that help it to thrive. Make sure we don't overregulate certain areas. Aviation is a huge one. Drone research and development is something that's huge down in our neck of the woods. We just have to make sure that there's not an overregulation on it. Additionally, entrepreneurism is something that is truly thriving, but some other states have had policies in place that help incent investments into these new budding businesses that Virginia needs to start doing as well to make sure we remain competitive there. And then defense. Jen mentioned right to work. I mean, right to work is extremely important. If you look at a few years ago when our rating agencies came and said, Virginia can keep its AAA bond rating, but we're going to put you on a negative watch. The only reason I think was Standard & Poor's said that they didn't downgrade us was because of our right to work status. So we need to protect some of the things that keep us as one of the best states in the nation for business, but also continue to grow the small business community. It's great to bring businesses here, but it's better if you can grow them here.
How do we continue to motivate our veterans in terms of entrepreneurship? What can we do for them?
Just educating them about the resources available. There's a lot out there for people who are interested in being entrepreneurs, and especially through the VA services. And what can we do to let them know that these services are available to help them get started and get them small business loans and the training they need. And there's often a lot of paperwork, so teaching them what's out there and available. But we retired from the military and chose to stay in Virginia. We fight for orders to Virginia Beach and Norfolk, and this is a wonderful place for us to be stationed. And a lot of us have our children in school, and we make friends here, we buy homes here, so we want to stay there after we retire. So starting a business, but just employment for our spouses, for our children too. It's very, very important to keep it attractive to military. So.
Are there any opportunities, for example, through our junior community colleges for veterans to get credit for experience they have garnered in the military.
They are talking more and more about that. Yes, how can we get them more college credit for their time in service, and especially for their ratings and what they've done in the military? How can that translate to college credit? I know that those programs are out there. I think they're wonderful, so we should expand on those and expand them to more schools throughout Virginia as well.
Environment. Talk to us about your passion around that.
So we live on the Lynn Haven. We live on the Chesapeake Bay, you know. So and there's lots of talk about local flooding, sea level rise. I mean, these are real issues. I've driven through many neighborhoods where they are flooded, and we either have to go around or it's there. We've all seen it. Another thing is just keeping it's so important to our tourism, right, and our economy, keeping the bay beautiful and clean. In addition to, it's just a wonderful natural resource. We swim there, we sail, we kayak, you know, we all use the beaches. So keeping that just valuable just gift that we have in Hampton Roads clean and thriving. So one of the bills I put in was a balloon bill, which was not a new bill, but it's limits the amount of balloons that can intentionally be released in an hour. Currently, the law says you can release 49 balloons an hour, and we've reduced it to 1. There was the Lynn Haven River Now Chesapeake Bay Foundation had a lot of research about just how that affects our marine wildlife. I mean, in addition to, gosh, helicopters, jet intakes, no good for those things. So you know, we reduced that level to 1. I feel like none may be a little much. You know, everybody wants to release a balloon every now and then, wedding, funeral, you know, what a celebration. But the small things, the small steps we can take to just keep our beaches clean, keep our waterways clean, protect our wildlife and our environment there.
I guess the sea level rise was a big issue and continues to be for the Navy as well.
Yes, the Navy has spent a lot of time and money, in addition, looking at sea level rise and flooding, because it affects the ability for all of our military members to get to work. You know, they have to drive through those flooded areas. So, you know, heaven forbid they need to be on base, and we have had a major, even just a rainstorm. It doesn't even take a hurricane, but that absolutely affects their readiness. So they are spending a lot of time and money to see what they can do as well to help.
Public safety and transportation issue that sea level rise brings to us.
Oh, definitely. I mean, sea level rise is very important. Flooding and sea level rise in our neck of the woods are a little bit bifurcated. A lot of our flooding that we have a problem with is due to unmaintained infrastructure, Woody. So, I mean, as you can imagine, all of our stormwater infrastructure was built, you know, back in the mid-1900s, if not a little before then. It had not been drained and dredged in, oh my goodness, most of it had been dredged until I was on city council back in 2012 in Virginia Beach. So the BMPs, those pockets that people think are lakes that are actually holes in the ground that are made to actually control that runoff, when you can almost walk across those, Woody, because of all the silt and stuff that have been run into them, you no longer have that benefit. And so a lot of what we saw was pipes that were 40% clogged, and of course, you know, you can't, you know, drain from a massive storm, or even like Jen said, even a small storm, if your storm water is 40% clogged. So having localities, having them able to have access to the funds necessary to maintain the infrastructure in stormwater to get the BMPs dredged go a long way with the flooding, the inland flooding. And of course, there is that sea level rise issue, which impacts our coastline tremendously, as well as, like Jen said, it's a big Navy issue. And then even in transportation, you know, we have light rail in Norfolk, and you can't run light rail when the roads are flooded down there.
We continue to invest in the Port of Virginia. It's a huge economic driver. I take it you will be supportive of that as well.
Absolutely. We got a wonderful tour over there, and it was just fascinating to see the magnitude of the operation that they're running there. And whatever we can do to support the port and just transporting goods in and out of that area as well, including rail and roads improvement, and you know, what are their needs, because it's a super large employer for our area. And yes, just a thriving economic gift for us. So
we have to make sure it remains one of the more sterling ports in the nation, so to speak. It's because those huge post-Panamax ships are able to come through there now. And it adds just so much to our economy. It's amazing.
Well, it is. You know, Woody, it's a rising tide, to put intended, that lifts all ships type thing. It impacts the economy from Virginia Beach all the way out to Southwest Virginia. It's all along the I-81 corridor where all those trucks go. I mean, they're coming from distribution centers to the port and vice versa. we put a lot of investment in that port a few years ago to make sure that we remain competitive with the new dredging compared to New York when they're raising the bridge, compared to down in Georgia. But that was just the beginning. We need to make sure that we don't stop investing in that port, because we don't need to do what happened early on in the 2000s, 2001, where we had one of the most sterling ports and one of the most competitive ports, and then we rested on our laurels. Others started to catch up with us, and we started to lose volume. We're back in the lead again, and we need to make sure that we continue to be a leader in technology and dredging, and making sure that the first place that those ships want to come to from overseas is to our Port of Virginia.
I believe both of you voted in favor of passage of the Equal Rights Amendment recently. There are a lot of challenges yet to be hurdled in that regard, but it was a big day in the General Assembly.
That was yesterday, yes. So I did vote in support of the ERA. It was the right thing to do. It was the right side of history to be on. I've early on campaigning have said, I didn't need that piece of paper. I didn't need a constitutional amendment to be a Navy pilot, a naval officer, a wife, mother, nurse practitioner, state senator. Didn't need it. I worked hard. I think that's the key to realizing life goals. All of us can realize life goals, no matter race, gender, religion, whatnot. But equality is the message we need to send. I want the message to be that I send my daughters, equality for all. So that was really kind of knocking off. There's a lot of threats of abuses and things that may happen. There's so many bigger battles we need to fight, the battles for life and for women, women's pay, those kinds of things. Those are separate, in my opinion, from the ERA. The ERA was a symbolic vote for me. It was a symbolic vote that I support equality. And that's the message that I want to send with that vote.
Glenn, same for you?
Very much, Woody. There's a lot of questions out there from legal scholars at all levels. Right. Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself said this thing may have to go back to back to Congress and come back down. It had expired. But I thought about it, and the most important thing, Woody, is in a couple of days, no one's going to remember why we voted for, why some voted against. And although I get to talk to my nieces, I don't get to talk to the million of little girls out there that may hear that either Virginia would have voted to recognize that they're equal to that boy next to them or not equal to the boy next to them. And like Jen, I thought it was very important to make a statement that that every woman, every girl is equal to that man or boy next to them. Government doesn't bestow equality. It's not ours to give. People are equal because our Creator deemed us equal. That's how our forefathers believed it. That's how all of us believe it today. And I thought it was very important to make that statement again for this next generation coming behind us.
Got about 30 seconds left, and I'm going to give it to you. Here's my question. What will success mean for you at the end of this session?
There's a lot to learn for me, so success is going to be easy, because I'm hoping I will have learned so much in the next 8 weeks. But it's truly just an honor to be in the room while history is being made. I appreciate that every day. I sit and I'm the walls that have housed these people previously to me. It's just amazing to sit there, to listen to the discussions, to know that I am the first person to hear this news. I'm truly living the news. So I appreciate that, and it's just awesome, and it's an honor. So I have a lot to learn. I'm excited to continue to learn and just to understand how to better represent my district, but all of my district, both sides of the House. So happy to be here and thrilled. It's an awesome honor.
Thank you, Senator Jen Kiggans and Delegate Glenn Davis. Good to see you both.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the VCTA Broadband Association and Cox Communications. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.